We did a completely new type of episode again on the Property Management Frame Breakers podcast. We out here breaking frames. This is kind of like a panel, right? But I just thought it was end of the year. I wanted to bring on kind of like my two besties in the coaching space, Tony Cline and Stacey Salyer. So buckle in for this last Property Management Frame Breakers show of the year with Stacey Salyer and Tony Cline. Forward into 2026, and what it really turned into was this conversation of kind of like how to really win in 2026, right? Like, what are the things that have been holding property managers back? What are better growth strategies? What are they most thinking about? And you know, they have a lot of different touch points in the ecosystem. And Stacey and Tony have both, if you don't know them, you know, they've been on the podcast. Stacey, I think, has been on the podcast the most times of anybody. Both people that scaled, sold property management companies, one in-house for a bigger roll-up, saw a bunch of different things, and are now working with many different clients. So just a good overlook of how to approach 2026 based on the lessons of 2025. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Welcome to the Property Management Frame Breakers podcast. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez, and I am here to introduce you to the folks in the property management space that have broken the frame of what you may believe was possible. This podcast is presented by Vendoroo. It is your all-in-one AI solution for resolving your maintenance needs. Let's go. Let's start with kind of like biggest lesson from 2025 that you're kind of like moving forward into 2026. Stacey, let's start with you. What did you notice in 2025 that makes you want to kind of like really get serious about in 2026?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, for me, I launched my new business. So I kind of soft launched in January and then like hard launched in March, right? I like went in strong, did a booth at Broker Owner and just kind of hit it hard with all my marketing and all that. And I call it my spaghetti year because I was throwing spaghetti at the wall, trying to figure out like who I really want to serve. And I kind of boiled it down by Q4 of this year to serve people who are looking to acquire property management companies and teaching people the mindset shift of going from operator to acquirer. So it's been a really big year for me personally, just kind of even developing myself and looking forward to 26 and fine tuning everything. So.
Okay. All right. I like that. Tony, how about you, man? What was kind of like if you were to summarize 2025 and going into 2026 of like aha moments, what's your insights there?
One of the things that I saw change quite a bit actually from when I first started doing coaching full time until sort of the end of 2025 is that people in the beginning, they were looking at tools and trying to figure out how can I figure out how to make my business better by implementing this solution or that solution. And what I've seen is there's been a bigger shift of instead of me being the one that's trying to fix everything, how do I implement a system that allows my team to implement a better system? How do I build a stronger team? And there's a whole bunch of things that go into that, but people aren't focused on looking at individual software and looking at the software benefits. They're looking at how does this actually apply to my team and how can my team use it to help us get better versus how can I force this thing down on my team that I saw at a conference. It's really more of a holistic approach that people are starting to rise above. As Stacey had mentioned earlier, moving from being that operator to somebody that actually is the conductor of the orchestra, right? Not the genius in the room with a bunch of assistants, but they're moving more to, I am the one that is orchestrating and conducting and directing all of these geniuses in their own positions. And I think that's been something fairly new. Over the last few years, we were really focused on, in the industry, like documenting your processes, automating your processes, and then pushing that down to the team. And I just don't think that approach, I don't know if that ever worked, but I think it's certainly people are pulling back the curtain and seeing that that's not working in the future. So it really is a lot of personal development and mindset shift, like Stacey said.
Is there a through line here between these things kind of thing? Like I feel like both of you moved from, Stacey, you were throwing kind of like spaghetti at the wall, right? Like, and you moved through to realize it makes more sense to grow from, or at least there's a gap in the understanding of like the growth lever that is acquisitions. And Tony's talking about going from like how do we document processes to how do we orchestrate a team and how do we get teams to win? Is there something there like is do acquisitions and building a team like you guys have both been through being acquired, acquiring other companies, stuff like that, right? Like, is there a parallel there? I'm genuinely asking. Like I have no idea. I haven't been through this.
I think a little bit, but I think kind of what for myself, and I don't know, this is kind of what I hear Tony talking a little bit about too, is I'm, instead of working with clients who are like kind of my former self, right?
Mhm.
Like in that mode of documenting processes and, being that kind of more that operator, I'm working with clients who are working toward their higher self. Because myself, I worked through a lot this year of like, working toward like with my higher self. So I don't know if it's necessarily like the industry per se, but maybe more the people like we're particularly attracting. However, I will say that with like AI coming on and, rapidly moving and, maybe we don't need so many platforms. Maybe we're able to, incorporate different things. And I mean, I've always been a firm believer in team building and all that anyway. So I don't know. I don't know if that really even answers your
No,
question.
I was just throwing it out there. Tony, what do you think? Do you think there's kind of like a link there?
I think there is the through line that I can see when you guys were talking is it's about the vision for me. Nobody goes from being heads down, I got a bunch of assistants and I'm the main person. I make all the decisions. I'm super important. I need to be involved with all the fires that happen because I need to be the one that solves the problems because I have that ego where I feel like I need to be, nobody's as good as me. I need to be involved in everything. You don't go from that to I'm going to acquire another portfolio and be super smart and grow my business. You also don't go from being that person that has a bunch of assistants to I'm going to try to figure out how to remove myself from a lot of the day to day without figuring out who's going to be the people running your business and being the experts in their roles. So the through line that I see in both of those things, acquisitions and team building, is the vision, setting
Yeah.
the vision of where we want to go. And you wind up having much different conversations after somebody has a big vision than when they're just going to work every day. Even if it's your own business, you're still going to work and putting in time and punching the clock unless you can tie that to a bigger vision, both professionally and personally.
Yeah, I think Stacey mentioned this idea of like maybe it's the people we're attracting, but I find myself very much in a similar kind of like in a similar loop going into 2025 to 2026. I entered here, as you all know, I entered this space kind of like end of 2024 and or at least got very dedicated to the space end of 2024. And I found myself very much just like, oh yeah, AI is changing everything. There's all these different changes that are happening, and it became a very much kind of like, well, you have to get on this wave in a similar way that I think most people first come to like you crack the door open to AI, and there's a lot of this like, oh my God, yeah, like people are gonna miss out if they don't do this, and that kind of energy. And as the year has gone on, what I've realized is this there are just some like really deep seated, it's almost like past trauma in property management, right? Like it feels like it's been such like a grind hamster wheel business for so long that there's almost this kind of like there's an awakening that feels like is happening right now of like we are whether and I think it's like a combination of things, right? Like there's a combination of like the content proliferation of property management, and there's more and more folks like you who have reached another level and are now coming back to kind of like talk about that other level. And that feels like there's a whole wave of folks that kind of like did that through the growth period that you both kind of like lived through and then got acquired in, and now we're coming back and like seeing the forest through the trees, coming back and like sharing lessons. Plus there's the technology that has really now taken a couple of different like laps around the sun, and now AI is coming into this thing, and there's this like combination of it's less about FOMO and more like, oh man, we can actually start to build things that before we felt we were just going to be in this corner of like small business doing this one thing, or like you have like one way of doing things. I think people are really opening up their eyes to, wait a minute, if I think bigger and think like a, building a team and not just like as a solo contributor with a couple of helpers. And I start to think, like it starts to open up these things like acquisitions and what am I actually really, really building? Tony, would you say it feels like, again, I've only had 1 year in it, right? Like, do you think there is like a general kind of like opening up of eyes right now that is happening? Or has that kind of like always been a constant of the folks that are at a certain level in property management versus, like, and I'm just tapping into those people more often than not? Or do you think there's kind of like a overall market shift of people really seeing things this way?
I don't know how to answer that question because my sample size, I'm not sure if this number is accurate, but I heard there's something like 40,000 property management companies across the US.
Yeah.
And so if you take that, no matter what I tell you is going to be such a small sample that I can only tell you what my experience is and the experience with the people that I'm working with. But imagine this, imagine that the three of us are sitting in a room with maybe three or four other people. The lights are kind of down. It's a little bit late at night. We're watching a horror film, and all of a sudden you hear a pounding on the outside door. And some people are going to get super freaked out because they've been watching this horror movie of what's happening, and they're going to relate that to the noise that's outside. Some people are going to say, "Oh, good, the pizza's here." Like, so you kind of look at that framework of this AI, this change, which everything is changing so fast now. When we hear that pounding on the door, that's all the change that's happening in our industry that hasn't been out there for a long time. We've been very steadily changing, and all of a sudden there's this hockey stick of change. And so that pounding on the outside door is you're going to react to it one of two ways. You're going to get super freaked out because you hear all this stuff that's happening in the horror film of property management, or you're going to say, "Oh, good, the pizza's here," and like, let's dig into it. Let's really figure out what's going on out there and really try to enjoy it as opposed to being afraid with it. And so I think you do have some people that still have their heads down. They're like, "I'm running a good business. Let me just keep my head down." And unfortunately, those people are going to miss out because I don't think you need to adopt or adapt to every single new technology piece of AI, but I think you got to have somebody on your team that is dedicated to evaluating all of this new opportunity, because some of it's going to be bogus and some of it is going to absolutely transform your business. And so the people that Stacey and I work with are the people I think that have their heads up a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it really just goes back to that mindset shift, right? So you can be a really good operator currently. I mean, there's a lot of people that currently run good companies, but haven't shifted their mindset into being open to change. I mean, if you're not open to change, I mean, it doesn't matter how good your company is now. I mean, give it a year or two and it's just not going to keep up. And so
Do you think that's Stacey? You really thinking like a good company in a year or two is like gonna suck shit if they don't like rapidly change in the next 24 months? Is that like real? Or because as a tech vendor and as a guy that I'm like evangelizing my thing, right? Like I can't say that, right? Like because I have a vested interest in it, right? Like, and I don't really know because I haven't run a property management company. Like, so I just really want to, let's not talk in hyperbole, like real effect of not being open to change over the next 24 months, or is it 5 years? In like, what do you think that's actually really going to feel like?
Well, I mean, I guess if we just go back in history during like prop tech, right? The prop tech boom, those companies that didn't want to keep up and kept their head in the sand and didn't shift their mindset. So again, it's not necessarily about how they run or if they're good or bad. It's just about mindset, in my opinion. So, now I'm teaching people to go out and acquire those businesses for cheap.
Sure.
Because they can, right? So I guess that's how I look at it. I can't say for sure if it's 12 months, 24 months, 5 years, but my guess is
Good.
it's probably going to be sooner than later. And, again, it just goes back to that mindset. So, yeah, and I'm relatively opinionated about it, I guess. I guess
That's
I
why I got a
can
problem
say
asking
that.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Tony? Timeline wise, like, do you really think it's like a 2 to 5 year thing between like not being competitive, or is it just kind of like there's just a bunch of upside here that could happen, like based on what you're seeing?
I think you got to really figure out first what type of business you're going to be in the future, because you can't be the business that you are today. It's consumer expectations are going to change the type of business you are today. And so if you said, look, we don't use any technology, you write us a paper check, you mail it in, we mail you a paper statement. Like if that's the niche you're going for, there are people in their 60s, 70s, 80s that are like, that's perfect. That's the kind of client or company I want to work with. Now there's probably a very, very small set of those. So you got to be really good at attracting them. But determining what kind of business you want to be and who you want to work with, identifying, I know a lot of people call it their ideal client profile. I'm a little more aggressive than that. I call it our target client profile, like who's the center of the bullseye, and I'm intentionally targeting them. It's determining that. It's determining what makes us unique in the marketplace, and then how do we leverage all of this change and all the technology, and it's almost about as much about what we let go of as what we add, because we're going to have to make changes, and the type of changes we make really depend on the type of client we want to serve. And the type of client we want to serve depends on the type of business that we see ourselves running over the next 12 to 24 months.
I like that reframe. I like the idea that you can stay old school if as a strategy you're niching into like the old school market, and that can actually go really well for you as long as you're aware that that's what you're doing. Whereas like the benefit of kind of like keeping up with the wave of change is the optionality of this bigger market that's coming in, and that's going to continue to grow, and finding your way through that, right? Like I think that that's a real thing. Yeah, that's cool, man.
If you do that, if you stay focused on that old school thing, you just have to realize you may be focusing on this 10% that really wants that. Yeah. But in doing so, you are absolutely alienating the other 90%. And that's okay, though. That's okay. It's getting really good at knowing that this is the clientele I want to go after, regardless of what subset you're going after. You have to realize that when you get super focused on one set of clientele, you have to be intentional about alienating everybody else. Otherwise, you have no story. You are unique, which means, and the public thinks property management companies are all the same until we're different, until we have shown them somehow that we're different. So if we're all the same, then why would I pay more than the least amount possible that I can pay? And so you have to set yourself up as being different and unique from your competitors in the marketplace. And so whether you leverage down old school or you leverage going full bore on the latest technology, you have to be really clear about who you are. And it's a lot of the stuff that I talk a lot with entrepreneurs about. They should only do the things that only they can do, and they should hire out or delegate everything else. And so if I'm the only one that can set the direction of where the ship is going, and then I decide to not be the captain of the ship, but I decide I'm going to go row because I'm a really good rower, well, nobody is the captain of the ship and nobody's setting the direction. And so you have to be really clear on what direction are we setting, and then we can help you build a team that will put the things in place to help you get there.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to a little bit what I was saying. Tony's probably a little bit more eloquent, but it really comes down to that mindset, right? Like whether you want to go super old school on running your business, and have that, 5-10% niche, or, different, but even super high tech is still going to niche down. It really comes to the leadership style. So like people that Tony and I are working with are really more into that leadership. I mean, there's probably still a wide blue ocean of people who are just free for all, like they have no idea what they're doing. They haven't really niched down. They're kind of just like running around freaking out, like, oh, AI is coming and this and that. And so I would, recommend people just stop and think, like, what kind of business do I really want to have? Like, who do I really want to serve? And then go for that. So
big announcement. Vendoroo is running an unprecedented promotion to give your team a little bit of extra time off during the holidays. And it's 90 days free. AI receptionist, AI triage, troubleshooting, work order creation. The only reason why this even makes sense is because we have burst through an old ceiling for AI, which said you can't get AI in until you right-size your processes, because if not, you're just throwing gasoline on top of a fire. Well, that's no longer true, because our AI agents are built to perform like an all-star teammate. Meaning, think about the last time you hired somebody great. They showed up on day one with enough skills to do their job to a certain level and take some stuff off your plate. They showed up with enough judgment to not do something that they weren't sure of. And they showed up with enough experience to help you figure out how to right size the process and policies to let them know the things that they don't know how to do. That is how our AI agents perform. That is how our onboarding feels like. Many of our clients report to us that they feel their company getting stronger as they're going through onboarding, as opposed to the typical software onboarding, which is like, I have a whole bunch of homework before I feel any kind of benefit. That's not what this feels like. You start getting benefits day one. So if you want your team to be able to like throttle down a little bit during the holidays, you're trying to give them that break, take advantage of this offer of 90 days free AI receptionist triage troubleshooting so that they can have some time with their loved ones. It's only good until the end of the year. Go to vendoroo.ai. Tell them I sent you. This is a limited offer. Only if you've seen this thing. Tell them Pablo sent you. Vendoroo.ai. 90 days for free. Risk free. What do you have to lose? You know, I look at this Zoom screen and I see three people that are big fans of differentiation. I think the three of us are very like into that idea. Is that I find myself speaking more and more with people about that, right? Like that feels like a growing topic that's being more and more understood. I think in the world of marketing in general, right? Like the more, like I think that's happening in the world of marketing in general. I assume that in the world of property management, the world's kind of, maybe from my purview, everybody's just kind of like being more and more educated around marketing because all of a sudden everybody has social media. So everybody has to think of like a individual marketing strategy and it isn't like a siloed thing. Is the topic of differentiation something that has been growing in mindshare in the industry? Like where is differentiation like in your purview of the people that you talk to, like, right? Like you both obviously select for clients that are, of a certain ilk. But are they coming to you already thinking I need to be more differentiated, or you find yourself more often than not starting the differentiation conversation? I'll start with you, Stacey.
I would say starting it. I actually don't. I think we are significantly behind in property management when it comes to thinking about being different than our competitor and marketing. Marketing is a huge wide blue ocean. And to be honest, I didn't even really realize the difference between marketing and sales until I launched my consulting business. And then I realized like, oh, I need to really do a lot of marketing and figure out my ICP and, like who's my ideal client? Who do I want to serve? And then actually speak to them. So I think in property management, a lot of us has been, well, we weren't taught marketing at all. And then we definitely weren't taught really that differentiator. I would say maybe a little bit, I had some things that were different than my competitors in my market. And I know Tony did as well. But knowing what I know now, if I was to have a property management company, I would totally dominate in my market because I now I know how to do it using social media and copywriting and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think it's a big opportunity actually still.
Interesting. What about you, Tony? Are people coming to you hoping to be differentiated, or are you bringing differentiation to the people?
I think it's similar to what Stacey said. They know that they need to somehow make a change, and they're not really sure how to do that. A lot of the people, when companies first get started, they, up to 100 doors say I'm not going to differentiate. I'm not going to decide that I'm working with this type of client and not this type of client because I got to pay bills. I gotta eat. So whatever looks like food, I'm gonna consume it. So whatever looks like a client, I'm gonna bring it in. And so what happens as companies grow, they wind up getting a bunch of mismatched clientele that all have different requirements, all have different pain points, all have different things that they're trying to get out of working with a property manager. And at some point, they build something that really can't grow and stretch much more. So most of the clients that I work with have built something, they have some level of success, and they say, I'm plateaued, I'm burnt out, I'm frustrated, or I'm excited and am ambitious and want to get to the next level, but I don't know how to get there from here because what I've built is it will break if I try to add anything to it. And a lot of times we do have to break that down. We have to reposition some of their people. We have to redirect the leaders to looking towards different goals that they've got out there. And so it's not so much that the people that come to us have this differentiation thing figured out. It's just they've got to a place where they know something has to change, and differentiation is a part of that. They have to decide to be something different before they can be something different.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that alignment. So as they continue to grow themselves as a leader, aligning with, who they want to be in the future and their leadership style. But nobody really comes to probably either one of us and is like, I want to align better with my leadership style and I want to be, figure out my differentiator. It's more, burnt out or I want to grow and I can't. But I mean, I see it online all the time. People, will be running, third party single family and they're like, oh, I have this opportunity to, bring on this apartment, what should I charge? Or, oh, this HOA approached me and I think I'm going to add them on. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, why don't you just specialize in the one thing like you'd be really, really good at? If you're really, really good at third-party single-family property management with rental rates between $2,000 and $2,500 a month and three-bedroom, two-bath, and you're in a certain market, like you could clean up in your market if you just literally go to that. But people start seeing like outside things and they're like, oh, more money. But then they don't really think about, well, it might kind of be more money, but it's not really because now you're like stretched thin and your team is all over the place. And anyway.
Okay. Now, they don't think about the lost opportunity cost, right? If I'm over here learning about how to do HOA management and getting my teeth kicked in over here because I don't know what I'm doing, the amount of time and energy and money and focus and training for my team, if I would apply that to the thing I'm really good at, the better you get at something, the harder it is to improve. Because if I'm 20% good at something, to get 5% better doesn't take a whole lot. But if I'm 90% good at something, to get that next 5%, you've really got to be paying attention to the details of this is what it takes. This is the discipline. This is the messaging. This is the repetition that I have to do. And so I agree, Stacey. If you find something that you are good at, leverage the heck out of that and put on the blinders. Don't pay attention to these, quote, opportunities that are nothing but distractions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that zone of genius. I talk about that. And it's the same, even within my business. I mean, there's decisions I've made in this last month that there are things that I'm going to sunset in my business that, I haven't formally announced yet, but I will be. And, I know some of my friends I've talked to, they're like, oh, but why would you do that? You're good at that. And it's like, well, sure, I'm good at a lot of things, but I have a very specific target that I'm going to be going for in 26 and something that I love to do. And so I am all in. And I guarantee you that within a year or two, I'll be happier because I'll have way more peace in my life. My team will be happier because we won't be like all over the place. My clients will be happier because it's just that's who I serve and that's what I'm going to do.
I feel like I'm getting like therapy of things that I need to hear right now. So
Pablo, could I comment on that one thing before we move on to what Stacey said? One of the things that she mentioned that is so hard for entrepreneurs, people that are trying to grow a business, is to recognize things that they're good at, that they like to do, that don't move the needle as much as other things that they could do. It's so hard for us to say, and this one of my weaknesses is I love screwing around in WordPress. I just like it. It's like instead of watching TV, I would do that. But it doesn't move the needle for me. The time I invest into messing around with WordPress and creating forms and doing all of this stuff doesn't move the needle as much as some of the other things I could be doing. And so as an entrepreneur, when you have that mindset shift, when you do have that bigger vision, it helps you realize I've got to let this go. And there may be somebody on my team that is not going to be as good as me yet, but I can train them up. Or I need to go hire somebody. I'm this good. I need to hire somebody that's even better. And letting go of those things it's so important to get to the next level, but it's so hard for us all to do because when we like it, we feel like we're productive at the end of the day, even if it actually cost us progress because we were screwing around with something that somebody else on our team could have done.
I like it. Let's talk what's missing in property management, right? Like I would say content stream or education, like something like what do people need to be more educated on? I feel like this is a layup for you, Stacey, because of exactly what you're kind of like niching into. I'm going to assume you're going to say acquisitions. I don't need to pigeonhole you into that, but like if you are going to say acquisitions, tell me kind of like what the aha is of like why we need more content and education around acquisitions. Like what isn't out there that wasn't out there before?
Yeah, well, I really don't think anyone's been teaching it at
Yeah.
all, really. I mean, kind of back in the day, nobody had, well, when I got into it in '04, I don't feel like there was really a strategy in growing your business. And
Mhm.
maybe that was just the brokerage I worked at, but it was, we were portfolio style. So it was just like you grew by portfolio, whatever, whatever. Then there became the biz dev manager. I don't know when that kind of came about, but it seemed popular in like the last 10 plus years. So hire a biz dev manager, pay him 60K a year plus some benefit, commission, and you can grow your business. Well, I had this aha moment this year. I was like, wait a minute, acquisitions. You can actually hustle less because I am anti-hustle culture and hustle less, but still grow your business much bigger and faster than you can by, just doing it door by door. So that's really what I think is missing is that mindset shift of, okay, so if I really want to go from operator to like CEO, I need to go
Mhm.
from operator to acquirer. And we could do it. There's generational wealth shift in the United States, as we all know. There may be businesses that you can go out and buy that maybe aren't run exactly like yours, but you can assimilate the contracts into your business and huge opportunity within every market. But it is a shift that needs to come from the leader of the company because they will need to kind of treat it like a job in the beginning and then make sure their team is set up. But I mean, really, if you look at it, so if you try and grow 10 doors a month, what is that, 120 doors a year? You're going to have some churn on top of that. So it's not even really plus 120 doors for the year. But you could go out and buy a business at 300 doors in what, 6 months? I mean, why would you not do that? I don't,
Yeah.
right? I mean, but I don't think anyone's really ever talked about it. And everybody has always looked at like, oh, it's just the big guys that do that, the big companies, or, I have to be at the certain level first and, before I could ever do that. And that's not true. There are so many different ways you can structure a deal, and anybody can buy a business as long as you work with me. I will teach you. But,
I
but
love it.
yeah, so truly, really, I look forward to 2026 because I want to see this mindset shift of like, oh, we can all acquire businesses. And why wouldn't you want to acquire a property management company? It's revenue. I mean, you're buying money.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I feel like that was such like a lollipop pitch for you, right? Because it's so there. It's like wide open, right? Like that really is there. What about you, Tony? Whether it's like a content stream or a type of education or types of events that are missing in the ecosystem, what do you think is missing as far as like helping people go from the person that they are to the person that they're trying to become here?
Okay, I'm going to try out a new, I don't know if it's an analogy or what, but something popped into my mind. So
I'm here for it.
there's a lot of people in the industry. Stacey and I have known each other for a long time, and we both are essentially working with the similar type of people that are wanting to better their businesses. Yet she and I will both attract different people based on just how you connect with somebody, the specialization that we're trying to focus on. And there's an underlying there, as you had mentioned earlier, there are other folks in this industry who are either getting into coaching or have been around for a while and just don't put a lot of that time, effort, and emphasis to be able to be out there in the marketplace promoting themselves. But there are other people, and there's a base level of things that we all have learned over the years that this is the truth. This is how you get to this far. And then we all layer our own flavor on top of that. It's similar in property management where you can have people in your marketplace that you're friendly with, that you can collaborate with, that you can learn best practices, and then each take your own flavor to that. So bringing that back to what I've been seeing, one of the things that I have noticed in our industry is as a coaching community, people tend to focus on different things. Like, I'm going to focus on helping you document your processes. I'm going to help you focus on how to implement those processes. I'm going to focus on your revenue per door, or I'm going to get really good at the financials, or I'm going to help you get really good at hiring a business development person or whatever. But to me, and I was in Seattle not that long ago, and there's a bunch of flooding. Stacey, I think there's still a bunch of flooding out there. And one of the things that got me thinking is there was a lot of houses and things that were flooding, and those people have to clean up the mess. And what came to my mind is if you're focusing on one aspect of your business, whether it's policy or process or hiring people or getting better at business development, you're essentially cleaning up one part of the house. You're moving the mud from one room to the next. And when you clean up your onboarding, but you don't clean up your actual operations, you've just moved the mud. You haven't cleaned the house. And so one of the things that I think is missing is helping people see how everything is connected. So one of the things I'm doing in my business is helping them see the holistic picture. And I think it's the same thing for property managers. We shouldn't be promoting the one thing that we do. We collect rent, we have a X% occupancy rate, or we have such a low eviction rate. It's helping them see the holistic picture of what we do for them and how we can help them. And that helps with that differentiation because, if I tell you, you get to use your own maintenance vendors, some people are going to be, yep, that's my guy because I want to use my own maintenance vendors. But if Stacey comes along and says, look, I've been doing this for 20 years. I have the best vendor relationships in the marketplace. I save you money. I save you time. I save you stress. And I produce the best overall value by the vendors we use. I'm going to save you from yourselves. If you need to use your own vendors, there are people out there that will help you navigate that mess. But we run a professional property management business. So let me lean into showing you how my vendor relationships are better than yours and how you get a better outcome. So
Are you saying the missing thing here is how to actually communicate holistic value as opposed to like siloed value?
Yeah, I think you can have siloed messages, but you have to have an overall framework that these are the categories of messages I'm going to send out, and here's how they eventually all connect so that I don't just pigeonhole you into being one thing. And if I don't like that one thing, if I want my proceeds on the 5th of the month and you give them on the 10th business day of the month, that I don't somehow disqualify you because I don't understand all the other value that you give that would help me overlook the fact that I'm not getting them until the 10th.
Would that come to like knowing your avatar, like truly deeply, like what are their hobbies? Where do they eat? Like whatever, right? Like really digging deep and then speaking to that avatar, I think, right?
Yeah, we leaned really heavy. We did this actually at the retreat that we had. We did this where we leaned really heavy into their pain points because if you start with the demographics of somebody, you can help understand their psychographics. So I don't really care if my client is 20 years old, 50 years old, or 70 years old. But by knowing their age, I can understand what's going on in their life. And I know that if somebody's got 2 teenagers at home and they're not yet of driving age, I know they got to spend a lot of time running their kids back and forth to sporting events. They don't have time to figure out what weekend they're going to go paint their property when it becomes vacant. So you lean on the psychographics, then you identify their pain points, then you start creating all your content around addressing their pain points. And you can only know their pain point when you get really specific on who they are.
Interesting. That gets my head really ringing as far as like stuff that Tony, you and I have talked about, like partnering to like bring to market and stuff like that. That's interesting. As I think of it, the thing that's most been pinging for me lately is something I think I've kind of like texted in the background with both of you. It's this idea that like we all agree on this really like rapidly moving, changing environment, right? Like particularly on the technological side. And I feel like I'm getting this like front row seat at like the tip of the spear on that. This idea of, bringing together somebody who used to run like the distressed property portfolio for maintenance for Fannie Mae and a, like pre-existing, Silicon Valley kind of like speed founder with world-class AI team produces very different results than company that's been around for like 10 years that already has like a critical infrastructure and is beholden to kind of like their own infrastructure. And yet those are the companies, so they're going to move much slower as this stuff changes. And we all have this like anchoring to the past naturally. And those pre-existing relationships between those like bigger players then kind of like disseminate down to the pre-existing already content creators that then give the advice of like what's real and what's not in the industry. And I think that creates this like vacuum of, what is really happening right now in AI. And I think like structurally, right, it's just going to continue to happen, right? Like obviously like the number one leading property management software in property management has more clients and more existing relationships. And therefore, like whatever they're doing is what everybody thinks is like the norm and what's possible, right? So like as I think of how do you actually give property managers like the front row seat that I'm getting of like what is really the tip of the spear in disruption and innovation and going from this moment of technology as like a better tool to technology as like a teammate and a partner, which really starts to change things as we all talk about like what does the team of the future look like, right? Like what is the organizational, like what is the strategy and how do we acquire more and scale more because now we're not constrained by like the human element of it. I don't think it's going to be me yelling from the rooftops of like this is what Vendoroo is doing, right? Like I think there needs to be some kind of like enablement of ground up property managers using technology in a very, very different way and allowing them to share that can't just come from this like group of people at the top that have these already pre-existing communities or audiences or whatever. Right. So like I don't know if I've said that clearly of like what I think is missing, but I think if I was to summarize it, it is like a, in other technology sectors, there's like Gartner or there's like the report that tells you like the magic quadrant of like what tool does what and what is like actually doing. And like operationalization of like something like that, that is like a more of a ground up thing and isn't controlled by the choke point of a sponsorship or a pre-existing relationship to me feels like something that's going to be that beacon that can show property management like what's truly possible moving forward and like what are the sunk costs that we all used to have to deal with that we know we don't have to deal with anymore if there is enough of this. But it's like really scary to think a new technology is the one that's going to provide that. So like it has to come peer to peer and
Let me
figuring that piece out. Yeah, go.
let me plug both of you guys then for this. So, Stacey talks about finding opportunities to purchase other portfolios and using that as leverage to grow your business. You can only do that if you have figured out how to run your business in a way that's smooth enough that allows you to have the time to go out and look for those opportunities. So one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to keep running your business as a small business operator in the direction you're doing with the information that you have. And if you're not adapting new technology, if you're not leaning into AI, if you're not bringing that in to free up you or members of your team, you're falling behind in not only technology, but in opportunity because you're not out there pursuing the opportunities to acquire other portfolios. So when you combine bringing in AI and technology to help your team operate more efficiently, to free you up, to have the thinking time and the time to pursue those opportunities. Now, when you work with Stacey to go through her program of what you do with that extra time and how you actually leverage that to find it, the combining of those two things are incredible. And we talk about technology changing super fast, and we all, I think, nobody's disputing, I think, that technology is changing our industry and every other industry. But as our friend Mark Brower likes to talk about, this second order of consequences, nobody is really leveraging. I don't hear people talking about when technology changes this rapidly, the consumer expectations follow right behind. And so I don't know if Domino's actually started the pizza delivery business, but that sort of became an expectation in that business. And so if you called a pizza place and you can't get a delivery, I'm really on a pizza kick this morning. I don't know, but
Someone's
Must be
hungry.
yeah. But delivering pizza turned into this whole delivery. Now it took a little while for technology to catch up, but that's that hockey stick that I'm talking about. So now if you call any restaurant anywhere, like if you can't get a DoorDash from it or a Grubhub or whatever, it's like the expectations of the consumer drove some of those business decisions. So you may be firm in this is the kind of business I want to run, but consumer expectations may change that because you can't be competitive by hanging back and doing the things you want to do where we answer every phone call live with a human being because AI sometimes gets it wrong. Well, your people sometimes get it wrong too, right? And so if you're not willing to invest in things that free up your time to be better, you're not going to be better and you're going to be passed by those who do come into the marketplace, don't have the largest imprint in the marketplace. If they're willing to adapt and be future forward, they're gonna eat your lunch.
Yeah. Well, and this might be going out on a limb, but if in the industry, if you're looking to, who's out there speaking, like the influencers in property management, and those particular influencers maybe don't have a mindset that embraces change as quickly as others, you may not be getting the best advice either. So that's just what it boils down to. I don't know really what the answer to that is, but I guess as a consumer, so like, if you run a property management company where you're getting your information, your influencer information, it's important to also look at them as well. Like what's their mindset? And again, I guess I keep talking about mindset. You keep talking about pizza, Tony, and I'm all about your mindset. So, the only constant is change. I have lived by that quote since I was a teenager, and I truly believe it. I am a change agent. And yeah, I think Tony had some great points too, because the consumer is really going to drive our business. So, yeah, even as a business leader, you may want to run it a certain way, but the consumer is going to tell you if it's going to work or not.
Yeah, I think that's the point. It's like the consumer is the one that's going to say it, right? So like how do we unearth ground up insights in order, like, ground up, not like ground up like me. And again, food insights of how this stuff is going is something I'm thinking about deeply. All right, we are fast forward a year. It's 2026, December 15th, and we're doing this again. What do you think is the biggest kind of like what do you think is the biggest, the most notable thing of like the year that just passed? Like if you are either for yourself personally or for the industry, let's just kind of like, let's end this with kind of like, what if I'm looking back in 2026 and things went amazing, give me like one or two things that happened for you or happened for the property management industry. Who wants to go first? I know that's a really tough one. I can go
I'll go.
first. Okay,
I'll
go
go
Tim.
first. Pablo, you know that I have been focusing on extremely vulnerable and intimate retreat style events.
Mhm.
And we've got another one coming up January or June 22nd through 26th. You're coming out there to be one of our expert presenters. Again, it's very small, very intimate. We're capping it at 13 attendees. We have 7 experts coming in. But you also came to the Grand Canyon, and we went through the Grand Canyon. That was also a small group event. One of the things that I see is this transformation of where people are getting the most value. People aren't necessarily leaning into, let me go to a conference and be spoke at for 3 days. It's really hard to be vulnerable. I call it the stadium versus locker room effect. It's really hard to be vulnerable in a stadium full of people, but change actually happens when you get inside the locker room and you talk with people who are at the similar place that you're at, chasing the same goals. And the conversations you and I had before the Grand Canyon changed drastically after the Grand Canyon. And the same thing after we had our retreat in Keystone. So I think you talk about the ground up and how do we work collaboratively to figure out what's actually working in the day to day. It's getting people in these smaller, intimate settings. Stacey, I think you're doing something at Systems Conference where you're doing a similar thing. So I won't steal your thunder. I'll let you speak to that. But I think we've both recognized that it's not education, it's not inspiration, it's not motivation, it's transformation. And that's what people are looking for. And we provide an opportunity for people to create that space. We create the space, and then we connect the people that come together. And for me, if I could do one a month of these, then that's how I would leverage that for 2026 because they're
Yes.
so impactful.
Operationalizing intimate, like transformational events for you is kind of like the thing that would be awesome for you in the industry. Yep, I like that.
I've just seen so much growth from so many of the people.
How about you, Stacey?
So yeah, similar. I am doing an event actually, January 16th, Friday in Vegas. It's a 1-day event, and it's similar to Tony. I talk a lot about, again, that mindset shift and the transformation. So, come an operator, transform into an acquirer. I have spots for up to 8 people. So again, kind of that intimate type thing. I'm not going to be standing on a stage talking at you all day. It's going to be actually like working together, and we can work within like your specific goals and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, as far as like a year from now, I believe I will have created a new category on how to teach people how to grow their businesses by buying businesses, right? Specifically in property management, and instead of growing door by door. So I also, like Tony, hope to have more in-person events. I do the majority of my work online like this, but I love working with people in person, and there's something really special about it as well. And my, biggest thing for me is putting myself in rooms with people that I aspire to, kind of reach like their goals, or, well, I have my own goals, but, just putting yourself in rooms where you're not the smartest person in the room, just doing that. So yeah, that's where I'll be, I guess. Hopefully here.
Love
Talk.
it. Love it. I love being in this room as officially not the smartest person in this room. For me, I think I need to, like the most valuable thing I think can be created is like one of these like ground up communities that is, focused on this technological change. As I think of, right, like the ikigai, right, like what is it, like the world needs, what you're great at, and like what you love to do kind of thing. I think the center of that bullseye for me for a long time has been creating community. And year one has been very much I don't think you get to create community without first you get to like be part of other people's watering holes, and then you can create your own watering hole kind of thing. Right. So like year one for me has been very much kind of like figuring out, which are the water holes that I belong in, and then figuring out kind of like how to do the next one. And whatever that version is, I know that it is going to be that, like, that ability for, like decentralize the knowledge exchange of like what happens inside of property management. If there's like one thing that I hear consistently in property management, is that it's like there's all these different like cliques, and if you're not in the clique, then you don't get access. And that's been kind of like weaponized to a certain extent. And I think, and that's fine, like I get the value of being part of all that stuff, but I think there needs to be that other space where that doesn't exist. And it's like it's not a gated wall, and it's really just like open to people to share in a very in a way. And I know that that takes a lot of enablement and figuring that piece out to get to like the end of like 2026, either having formed that enough. Like I think the win is like I formed that enough that there is an independent event of that community that's happening, and it's going to be a no-brainer event for everybody. So that would be my thing, right? That like ground up insights about the changing face of like technology and team building and what you're able to do in property management that doesn't feel like, like a gated garden kind of thing would be my thing. So that being said, more time with the two of you would be awesome as well. Like I really like this. Like I said, the two of you have been two of my biggest like friends and allies throughout 2025, and I'm really really grateful to get to do this and end the year. You guys will be the last podcast episode. So just a big thank you to the two of you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity to come on and spend time with the both of you.
Yeah,
Cool.
thank you. Yeah, no, it's been awesome, and getting to know you very well, and Tony even better. And Tony and I are both Pisces, and so it makes sense why we're both into the mindset and transformation. I bring the woo-woo to our trio.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. You are the most woo in the trio for sure. All right, y'all. Thanks for doing this.